Good morning. How are you? Happy Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous day already. I know some of you are just getting started and some of you have been going for a while, but it is time for Wellness Wednesday. If you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, a wellness advocate, huge fan of jazzercise, line dancing, having a little weirdness with my lighting here. There we go. That's a little bit better. And I started Wellness Wednesday because I have been on a lifelong journey with battling anxiety and depression and learned that sharing that information as well as encouraging others to share with me has taught me a lot. I've been able to learn a lot from others and hopefully some have learned from me. So that's why I started Wellness Wednesday. I can't believe it's episode 85. Another thing that has helped over time is that I'm studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. I'm also an activewear boutique owner and just so many things. And I've just found over time that my entire life has begun to revolve around wellness and ways to feel better every single day and do better. So if you're here, let me know you're here. And if sometimes Facebook doesn't show me all of the things. So sometimes you may make a comment or say hi and I don't recognize it or don't see it. And that just means that Facebook didn't show me and that when I get done, I will absolutely answer your question, respond, whatever. So don't be afraid to give your own tips, to ask questions. And if you have questions about anything after I'm done, feel free to message me. So last week, we talked about what to do when it seems like things are falling apart. And if you didn't see that, I'm happy to tag you in that video or shoot you. I can't make words this morning. Shoot you that video via Messenger. You can also find it on my page. If you go through my videos, all of the Wellness Wednesdays, all 85 episodes after today will be there. And I'm just so excited that this amazing concept has done so well, and some of the comments I've gotten from some of you about how much it has helped in one way or another. Now, a lot of times with Wellness Wednesday, I sound repetitive. I say a lot of the same things, but it's because there are so many aspects of wellness that and ways to work on it that overlap. Sometimes we dig into mindset. And other times we deal with specific things like food or exercise or whatever. And today's topic is menopause, or what I refer to as the big M. This is what I actually intended to cover last week. So we're going to touch on that today. But last week I had something else come to me the day before when I was getting ready for Wellness Wednesday, and it seemed like a very important topic at the time. So that's what we went with. So today is the big M. And ironically, a friend informed me since then that her doctor just ordered a battery of tests because they believe that she is starting menopause too early. So as usual, timing is everything, right? So guys, if you're watching, don't be scared of this topic. It may help you understand the woman in your life better. So let's get on it. What is menopause? Well, quite simply, and you probably know this, and you may hear some things that you know today, and you may also hear some things that you don't know. And menopause is the end of menstrual periods and marks the end of the ability to have children, also known as the change of life. Technically, you are in menopause if it has been 1 year since your periods have ceased. Okay, so most often this occurs in the 40s or 50s. And according to the National Institute of Health, it is most often between 45 and 55 with an average age of 51. Early is considered 45 to 50, which really surprises me. And here's why. By 43, what did I figure out? By 44, I was a year past and I was pretty well done and in full-blown menopause. And at that time, I had a friend who was very, very close to me in age. We're talking a matter of months, who had been done at the time that I started, had been done for 2 or 3 years. So I was actually surprised to learn that early is considered 45 to 50. Other things that can bring it on besides just the natural progression of things is surgery. If you have a hysterectomy, sometimes what's the word I'm looking for? When they take out just the ovaries. Family history, all of those things can have an effect. If you have surgery, it can throw you into early menopause, surgically induced menopause. But there's really no rhyme or reason with menopause. Everyone is different. Like I said, I was done with that year by 44. And I'm going to be honest with you. I prayed and prayed and prayed for menopause. I had so many issues with hormone sensitivity, birth control. I had endometriosis. Birth control was supposed to help it. I went through a lot of different forms of birth control that just made my endometriosis symptoms worse, or didn't help them and then added symptoms to it. So I was ready for menopause. I was ready to be done with all those extra hormones, and all of that nonsense. So I was absolutely thrilled when it finally came, even though it was a bit challenging. But like I said, everyone is different. And I was quite shocked to learn that my friend was being asked to go through a bunch of tests because she's actually very close to my age now, and past the age that I and several women that I know were already starting or done with menopause. So I probably started perimenopause symptoms at about 36 or 37. And I didn't realize it was perimenopause symptoms at the time, but we'll get into that a little bit. One thing that I am reminded of when it comes to menopause is that there's an episode of Golden Girls where Blanche is finally experiencing menopause. She starts out thinking she's pregnant, and we really have no idea how old she is because she was always lying about her age. And she thinks it's the end of her sexuality, that she's just, that's it. Her life is over, which I find ironic comparison considering the fact that, like I said, when I was literally praying for it from the time I was in my early 30s. It was just like, bring it on. And because of my family history, because there were so many surgically induced menopauses in my family history, there was no family history to go by in terms of, okay, mom started at this time, grandma started around this age, so this is probably the age I'm going to start. No clue whatsoever because of the fact that there were so many surgically induced menopauses in the family history. So, just again, remember and know that everybody is different. But I was definitely in perimenopause by my late 30s, without a doubt. So most common symptoms, and most of these you're going to know, a couple of them might surprise you, are irregularity. That's usually the first sign that you are getting started. And here's the thing. If you've been irregular and that's been an issue your whole life, you won't know that that means that menopause is coming. Dryness. Now, you're going to assume, I would naturally assume, that dryness refers to specific things. However, I mean dryness everywhere, like dry skin. My skin got ridiculously drier. I found ways to handle that. My skin became more sensitive. So dryness is not just a libido thing, if you will. It also relates to other parts of your body. My eyes got drier. I still struggle with eye dryness, that I never had prior to that. And ironically, how I learned about my eye dryness was because no matter what I did when I was studying my bachelor's, which was back in 2014 to 2016, no matter what I did, if I tried to read for very long, my eyes would get really heavy and droopy, and I learned that that was a symptom of dry eye. So irregularity, dryness, hot flashes, chills, night sweats. This is a symptom that almost everybody experiences. We start getting hot flashes. I think I was in my early to mid 30s the very first time I had a hot flash. Whew, I sure knew what it was right away, even though I'd never had one, because it literally felt like somebody had set me on fire from the inside. Like I was just going to spontaneously combust any minute. And when it was done, I was like, oh my gosh, I think that was a hot flash, because I'd never experienced anything like it before. So hot flashes tend to lead to chills and tend to lead to night sweats. Those are kind of a vicious circle. And that's when I really started struggling with my menopause symptoms, was when the sleep disturbances started. I could handle the hot flashes. I really didn't have mood changes like a lot of people do, which I was very thankful for. because that can be a heavy duty symptom and it can cause a lot of problems. But the sleep disturbances were definitely an issue for me, and they were not because I couldn't get to sleep. It was because I would wake up sweating, and then I would be cold and the covers would be on and they would be off, and I would have the AC down to 68 degrees and a fan running with the window open when it was, less than 60 degrees outside. And like I said, it was covers on, covers off. You get up, everything's drenched in sweat. You have to put a towel down or change your sheets to get back in bed. So those are those are kind of a vicious circle. You get the hot flash, and then you get the sweats, and then you get the chills, and it's all just kind of meshed in together. So sleep disturbances are a thing, though. Fortunately, I didn't experience a lot of that until a couple years ago. But a lot of people have issues. I have a friend who has no problems getting to sleep, but struggles to stay there once she's there. I have had sleep disturbances off and on, not related to hot flashes, where I might have trouble getting to sleep, but once I'm there, I'm okay. It's getting there that's the problem. I could literally be falling asleep on the couch and then get up and go to bed, and I lay there wide awake for 2 hours. And it's not a stress thing because I'm not thinking about anything. So I knew that those were related to my menopause. Mood changes, sometimes those can be really ugly with people. I had heard once that the more you struggled with mood changes around your cycle, the more apt you were going to struggle with mood changes during menopause, but I don't believe that to be true. I had a lot of issues around my cycles because of my hormone sensitivity, and I actually experienced less mood shift once I was off of the birth control and all the synthetic hormones, and just operating on my own natural stuff. I had a lot less mood changes, definitely libido changes. Libido changes are definitely always a symptom of menopause. Weight gain, slowed metabolism, thinning hair or decreased hair growth, decreased hair growth in normal areas. I'm going to go somewhere with this. Thinning hair is not really an issue I've had as much, although there have been times where I thought it was going to become a problem. But I'm blessed that I still, every time I go to my hairdresser, she has to thin my hair a little bit because there's so much of it. When I say decreased hair growth in normal areas, what I mean is eyebrows. I mean, my girl hasn't had to wax my eyebrows in probably 4 years. She finally just stopped asking. I think maybe once a year she's like, do you need anything done with your eyebrows? And she'll look at them and she'll go, never mind. So decreased hair growth in normal areas. The hair on my legs got a lot thinner. The areas where we expect hair growth got to be a lot less. However, increased growth in weird areas, like weird little coarse little curly hairs that pop out of, a spot on your chin. It's just one all the time. And every time I feel it, I have to run into the bathroom and get the magnifying mirror up and grab the tweezers and yank it out. So increased hair growth in weird areas that some people assume has to do with hormone replacement therapy, but it happens without that. It just may happen more if you're using hormone replacement therapy. Deflate. This is a common thing, and I did experience a little bit in the beginning, where you have less breast fullness. And I know this is very intimate, y'all, but it's the truth. Deflate is a thing. That's what I called it, and I didn't understand why they called it until I actually looked at myself in the mirror one day and went, oh my goodness. Now, not as much of a problem for me now, but probably because of the things that I do to balance my menopause symptoms. Urinary incontinence, of course, we know for some of us that comes just after having a child and then gradually gets worse. It was way before I started perimenopause, before I stopped being able to jump on a trampoline. It's just a woman thing, and I'm very sorry about that, because it can be difficult. But once I started menopause, I definitely experienced more issues. And I could see where even when my body was cycling, even though I wasn't actually having a period, where this kind of thing would pop up and become worse during certain times of the month. So not so common symptoms of menopause. And some of these might get your attention, because when they first started for me, it was in perimenopause, and I was on birth control. I had finally found one that was working for me, that was not exacerbating my symptoms of endometriosis and not adding a whole lot of symptoms. but I had been on it a while. So when some of this started, I kind of assumed that it was the birth control. And it turns out that a lot of these were symptoms of perimenopause, a couple of them symptoms of menopause once I've gotten through. And the first one was decreased motor coordination and brain fog. The brain fog for me happened more in the last few years. Now, mind you, I am now 7 years. I think I figured out I'm 7 years past, because it was 2017, end of 2017, that I finished 1 year of where I was considered in menopause, because I hadn't had anything for a year. So that puts me at about 7 years this year. November, in fact, will be my will be the end of my 7th year. So just recently, the brain fog, that's something that developed. Good morning, Miss Danielle. Something that developed a couple of years ago, and I really didn't catch on to it right away. I would look at what I ate before I went to bed at night to see if my blood sugar was dropping overnight, or for a while thought it was because I was drinking more coffee than usual, which is not something I should be doing on a daily basis. So I attributed the brain fog to a lot of other things, but it truly can be a perimenopause and menopause symptom, along with decreased motor function. For me, the big one for perimenopause, so that was, again, back in 2015, 2016, when I didn't realize that I was starting perimenopause, was itchy, crawly skin. I would be, and I had to, when I was in school, I had to stand up and read out loud to myself, because it was the only way I could keep from falling asleep while I was reading some of those classes. And I would just itch. And even though my skin wasn't visibly dry, because I had started to get control of that, I would just itch. Things would itch. And I just, yes, felt like something was crawling under my skin, which is actually a not as common symptom of perimenopause. Changes in body odor. That's been a fairly recent for me. That can be a lot of different things. I've had the changes in body odor off and on, not always in the area that you would assume. About a year ago, I was checking myself to make sure I had deodorant on and picked up the smell of onions. And yes, I'm being very, very straightforward and honest here. I was freaked out. I was like, onions? Why do I smell like onions? So I started doing a little research. And yes, I eat a lot of onions, but not so much that not any more than I ever have. So this was definitely a new thing, and it definitely can be menopause associated. So changes in body odor are something to watch out for. And like I said, not necessarily in any specific areas, that you would assume. Increased bloating, slower digestion, decreased metabolism. Those are things that are known to come with menopause. And sometimes the things that we used before that helped us keep our weight off or keep weight down before don't work now, as our body and our metabolism starts to change. Increased allergies. This was something else I didn't know was associated with menopause, but something I definitely experienced. And it is on the laundry list. There's a couple of different lists, long ones, of symptoms of menopause. Nobody talks about symptoms of menopause that nobody knows about. I wish I could find the list that I found years ago at the time, because I was surprised at how many items I had going on that were on the list that I didn't realize were associated with perimenopause. So definitely increased allergies. And then for me, obviously when you first start and you're first getting into menopause, the hot flashes basically mean a lot of times we're running at a higher body temperature in general. But for me, something I noticed, and it almost seemed like clockwork, like every time I hit another year, it was almost like my core body temperature dropped a little bit more. So now, even in the summertime, if there's very little humidity in the house, I'm still cold. And then it makes me think about all these other women that I've known over time that were older that were always cold. And I'm starting to understand, because it does seem like every time I hit a 1 year mark, my body temperature drops a little bit more. So you can actually experience decreased body running temperature as you progress into menopause and get a few years past. Good morning, Miss Laura. So what can we do about it? Those are some common symptoms. Oh, also another common symptom becoming more common, people are associating it with menopause more and more, are joint aches. especially in the hips. That seems to be more and more commonly associated with symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. So what can we do about it? Well, there's always hormone replacement therapy, and that's generally the first and primary thing that people talk about. And that can look like a couple different things. It can look like a pharmaceutical hormone replacement therapy. And there's also hormone doctors that specialize. We have one here locally where I live. And I'm sure there's probably one that you could find if you are not local. And if you want to know who that is, shoot me a message and I'll let you know, how to get in touch with that person. But, pharmaceutical or bioidentical, and bioidentical, tend to be natural forms of hormones, frequently phytoestrogens or things like that, that are designed to replace hormones or change your hormone balance in your body. I don't know a lot about bioidentical hormones. I seriously considered it off and on for a while. But first of all, I tend to fear because I haven't had a lot of mood extremes. I've been able to stay in a pretty balanced mood throughout my menopause experience. I've been nervous about trying anything that requires like a pellet, like a 2 or 3 month commitment, because if it does affect my mood, I don't want that. I've been very, very fortunate to not have those extreme mood shifts that are sometimes associated with menopause. Another uncommon symptom that I forgot to speak of, and I may have mentioned it briefly, is that my skin became very sensitive. And it became very easy to irritate. Like all you had to do was rub a little bit like that, and I would feel like my skin was gonna like hop off my body and crawl away. That was also something that was associated with anxiety as well. And when I got my anxiety down, then that became a little bit more controlled, if you will. So, and I can't stress enough, anxiety will, if you already experience anxiety, it will increase with menopause. And it is something that if you've never really experienced it, it can become a thing in association with perimenopause and menopause. So again, all right, so back to the, I'm kind of bouncing around here. Back to the hormone replacement therapy. There's pharmaceutical options and there are bioidentical options. There are also natural options. And I want to be careful how much I dig into this. I am not a doctor. I am not an herbalist, any of that. However, I do know that I have played with different things. I've done a fair amount of research. There have been things that have worked for me, that have basically been like silver bullets. And I'm still, as I spend more time post-menopausal, I find new problems or find that some things don't work as well and I have to change things up a little bit. But there are natural ways that you can do it without anything. And that is, I know you guys are going to be so shocked because this is something I never ever talk about. Diet. Your diet can have a profound effect on how your body responds to menopause. Foods like caffeine, alcohol, sugar, and spicy foods can be a trigger for hot flashes. I have a friend that is now very careful about how much she drinks alcohol and when, because she has figured out that it has a direct impact on her sleep at night. And I know that sometimes if I've had a beer or two, I feel like I'm running warmer. It may be harder for me to get comfortable in bed because I'm running warmer. I feel hotter. And I know that it increases basically our running temperature. That's what I refer to it as. I'm kind of a car girl. So optimal running temperature is what comes to mind. Trigger foods like caffeine, they can amp up anxiety. Caffeine does amp up anxiety for me, so I try to be cautious about how much of it I consume. And anxiety can also result in hot flashes. So again, kind of a vicious circle. So trigger foods like caffeine, alcohol, sugar, spicy foods can also make you feel warmer and trigger hot flashes. So if you're really having a problem with hot flashes, some of those things can be trigger foods. If you really don't want to avoid them, then maybe focus on reducing them. And high protein diets, which everybody should be getting, usually higher protein than what they are, and diets that are rich in fruits and veggies, not only help with the symptoms of menopause, but they also help promote less bone breakdown, which is usually starts after menopause. If you're going to experience any kind of bone breakdown, osteoporosis. A lot of times menopause can be the trigger for that, because there are some hormone relationships there. So diet is important. So it's not like I haven't talked about it before. I already know from personal experience, and I've shared with you, that changing my diet and trying to reduce those processed foods, packaged foods, eat more vegetables, eat more fruit, high fiber stuff, high protein, healthy fats, those not only helped me begin to control my anxiety and depression, but they improved my performance when I was running, and they were crucial in helping to control the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. Good morning, Miss Laura. So skipping meals. A lot of people tend to skip meals. Listen, when we want to lose weight, one of the first things we do is we cut out the high calorie foods, which is protein, which is our healthy fats, which we need for our body to work properly and things to grow properly and to keep our skin moist and all of those things. So, but skipping meals is actually associated with 4.3% less weight loss and actually may increase symptoms of menopause. So this is where I've said before, an old school of thought used to be, if you're not hungry, don't eat. Well, if that was the case, I would almost never eat, because most of the time I don't get hungry. I go from feeling fine to feeling like I needed to eat 5 minutes ago, like I'm just gonna keel over if I don't get some food in me. And I never in that process get hungry. So if that's an issue for you, you may need to eat by the clock. That is something that I have, that I've learned that I have to do. Okay, it's 11:30. It's time to start thinking about lunch. Okay, it's, I had breakfast at 8. I'm feeling a little faint. Maybe I need to have a mid-morning snack. There's a lot of research out there that indicates that we should be eating more smaller meals per day more often. And I have been on a food program that has done exactly that. And it's the best I've ever felt in my life. So I can't emphasize enough that skipping meals is not the answer. It's not the way to lose weight if you want to feel good while you're doing it. So it's just important to be mindful of your portions and the kind of food you're eating. But in any case, diet is a very, very important part of combating any lifestyle change, any life change, any major changes you have going on in your body. If you are mindful of what you are eating, it's going to make a huge difference. So next up, exercise. I know, go ahead and roll your eyes, because I know we've talked about this before. Exercise has been critical in me controlling my anxiety and depression. I have come home from work in the most foul of moods and gone to a line dancing class for 2 hours and come out of it a completely different person. Gone for a 30-minute run and come out of it a completely different person. It doesn't matter the kind of exercise you do. You may find that certain types of exercise do more for you than others. I love jazzercise. And for a while there, I was only doing jazzercise, and for a while, I haven't really been running consistently. But as much as jazzercise does for me, and it makes me feel strong, and it burns energy, and it changes my mood and all of that, it doesn't have quite the same impact on me as a good solid 30-minute run does. So I have gotten back into running because I see the differences. I see that running is really what does it for me. But getting out there, getting out in nature, walking, running, going to an exercise class, a rowing machine or a treadmill at home, all of those things, anything that gets your heart rate up and gets you moving for 15 to 30 minutes is huge. And it's going to help with a lot of things, but it's also going to help with your symptoms of menopause. Now, I can tell you that running and doing group exercises, when I first started menopause, there was a group of us that was meeting regularly at the local school and doing stadium runs and push-ups and calisthenics, body weight exercises, stuff like that. And when I was first starting menopause, there were just certain times of the month where I had to go to the bathroom like 3 times before we could get started, and then once after the first lap around the track because of that urinary incontinence. So I would not drink anything for 3 hours before I went to this, just so that I could make sure I had an empty bladder. So sometimes, you need to make sure whatever you're doing is in a place where you can get to the bathroom if you're experiencing that with menopause. but you can get around it. You really can. And it's important to try to get out there and garden. Yes, Danielle, work it out. I know, like I said, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I produce diet and exercise as pretty much the key components of anything, for healing anything, fixing anything, feeling better, any of it. And there's extensive research out there that shows that it's very, very important for menopause support as well. Water. Most of us don't get enough of it. We have to drink our water. Water helps with that excess bloating. It helps keep things moisturized. You're essentially, when you're drinking your minimum amount of water every day, you're keeping yourself moisturized from the inside. So with all that skin dryness, hair dryness, yes, like I said, not just dryness where you might be thinking I was talking about. My hair, when I was a teenager, even as an adult, excuse me, when I started menopause, I had to wash my hair every day. Drove my hairdresser nuts because hair color disappeared out of my hair faster, all kinds of things. I had to wash my hair every day because if I didn't, it literally looked like somebody dropped an oil bomb on my head. A year and a half into menopause, I'm like, what is going on with my hair? It looks terrible. I stopped washing my hair every day. I wash my hair about every other day. With some of the things that I do to help with my symptoms of menopause, I can't really go a third day without washing my hair. I have to do every other day or I start looking like an oil bomb hit it again. But for a while, I'm pretty sure I could have gone like a year without washing it. And you would have never known because it was so dry. So yes, dryness all over. So that water is important. We need to make sure we hydrate. It keeps our muscles hydrated so that we can work out, so that we have less muscle waste. It helps to keep us full if we have a glass of water before we eat a meal. It helps to keep us full so we consume less in our meal. Helps with the skin, helps with the hair, all of the things. The water is very important. So again, all the same things we talk about all of the time are natural and lifestyle options for controlling and helping to reduce menopause symptoms. Sometimes it's not enough. So sometimes you have to look at the hormone replacement therapy or the bioidentical. But there's other options too. There are supplements, especially supplements that have phytoestrogens in them. Phytoestrogen is just what it sounds like. It's a plant estrogen. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought on this. And the FDA isn't a huge fan of supplements because they're hard to control. They're hard to inspect. They're hard to control the, what's the word I'm looking for? The consistency and content of them. So a lot of times if you do research, what you will see is it may help with this, but there's not enough evidence to support it. Or it may help with that, but there's not enough evidence to support it. But if you are like me, and try to stay away from pharmaceuticals, there are some things out there that can be tremendously helpful. Supplements, phytoestrogens, different things. I have done a fair amount of research. If you want to know, I'm not going to get into it here, but if you want to know what I do to help keep my menopause symptoms under control, then please feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, don't be afraid to do some research. Now, when I say research, be very careful in your research. If you have a trusted doctor, talk to your doctor. If you want to talk to a hormone doctor, do that. If you are going to commence to getting on Google and researching and looking at books or whatever, make sure you're digging for a while. Make sure you're not just going by what one link or the first two links has to say. Make sure you're digging in, especially if it's something I really don't know a lot about. I'm going to wait until I find multiple pages of links that are saying the same thing. I like to read blogs. I like to read personal experiences from other people that are using things and what they experienced versus just laundry lists from medical websites about yes or no, or you should or shouldn't do this and this is why. I like to dig into people that have been doing it and why they started doing it and how it's worked for them. Those are the stories I like to read. So if you're going to research and do a fair amount of digging. If you have access to a collegiate library, that can sometimes be a great resource in this department. For example, I'm in grad school. Now, I will grant you, I haven't really started poking around for any supplements yet, but there are a few that I take. You can go to Google Scholar. Sometimes if there's a scholarly article or peer-reviewed thing that's been done on a specific supplement, That can be very helpful if you don't have access to a collegiate library. So do a fair amount of research. And then the most important thing to know is this. If you are going to try a supplement, if you're going to try anything different, okay, in terms of a pill, a pharmaceutical, hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical, whatever, just change one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Because if you start taking something new that you've researched and you feel like is going to help you, and you start taking 3 or 4 things at once, then you have no way of knowing if you have a problem with one of them. You have no way of knowing which one it was. So I cannot emphasize enough that if you are going to dig into supplements, phytoestrogens, anything like that, that when you make changes like that, when you add something new, that you do it one at a time for a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks before you add the next thing. So that if you are having any kind of an allergic reaction, any kind of gastrointestinal distress, and I have a joke, I have a friend, I used to say she was trying to kill me because she would research something and she would recommend it to me and then I would research it, or I would not research it because she had, and I would start taking it and I would have some kind of an allergic reaction to it. So after like the 3rd time, the joke became that she was trying to kill me. That she was really trying to help me, but she was trying to kill me. And it was just because I was taking her word on the research, but I wasn't researching in terms of me. And my specific unique issues. For example, stevia. It's a wonderful sweetener. It's a natural sweetener. It's fantastic for diabetics. However, your girl is allergic to, this is one of the ones that she recommended to me, but your girl is allergic to ragweed, severely allergic to ragweed. And stevia comes from the ragweed plant family. So there's what's happened is I had an allergic reaction. I was having severe gastrointestinal distress. I looked backwards. I'm like, what have I changed in the last couple weeks? Figured out that was it. Stopped taking it. My problem stopped within 24 to 48 hours. And I said, oh, okay. She's trying to kill me again. But the truth is there is a strain of stevia I can use. There's 2 different ones. There's one I can handle, one I can't. Not sure which ones those are right now. I just know what products I can use that have it, that don't bother me. So when you research, it's important for you not to just take someone else's word for it. It's important if you're going to start researching supplements and phytoestrogens, bioidentical hormones for handling menopause, then it's important to make sure that you're researching in terms of your issues and that you're thinking about any other medications or supplements that you may be on. So it's important to research responsibly is what I'm trying to say. But if you're like me and you didn't want to do any kind of pharmaceutical anything, and some of the bioidentical options, like I said, are in the form of pellets where you have the pellet inserted for 3 or 4 months. I think it's kind of shot into you, not really clear on all that. But I was concerned. I wanted control because I know how sensitive my system can be, especially when it comes to hormones or anything that looks like hormones. So I wanted to be in control of it in a way where if something was going wrong, I could stop taking whatever it was. And I've been very happy with what I've done. So if you want to reach out to me and find out what I've done and what I've worked with that's really helped me, then I'm happy. But otherwise, do the research and research responsibly. So again, I can't stress enough, diet, exercise, water. We may not like it, but those are the critical components of any kind of healing or handling that we need to do. They really are. And again, if you need more, then talk to your doctor, talk to a hormone therapist, or responsibly research some of the alternatives that are out there that may be helpful. Don't just go to the store and grab something off the counter or off the shelf that says that it helps with hormone symptoms and just go with it, not without checking it out seriously, because some of those can really throw you for a loop, and some of them can also be dangerous. So I know it's easy to assume that if it's on the shelf that it's safe, but that's not always the case. So make sure, like I said, that you research responsibly. So I'm going to wrap it up now because that's all I have. But remember these things. 1 year does not mean symptoms are gone. Just because you've been a year without a period and you're officially in menopause does not mean your symptoms go away. In fact, they can continue for several years after. Remember that everyone is different. Everyone's going to have a different experience. Those common symptoms that I talked about are the most common across the board. Some women sail through menopause with no problems whatsoever. I would like to know those women. I honestly have had very little issues. But it's because I pay attention to my body, and as soon as something started to change, I started to figure out if it was something I could live with or something that I needed to address, and got to work on it. But mostly also because by the time my menopause started, I was pretty clean with my diet and exercising regularly, and I believe that helped to control a lot of it. Only you can decide how you want to deal with it. At the end of the day, remember, second opinions are okay. Research is okay. You can talk to your doctor. Nobody can tell you how things are going to make you feel and what's going to make you feel okay other than you. If you're not sure, talk to your doctor. And if you'd like to know more, like I said, about what I've done to control it, feel free to reach out to me, and I will let you know some of the things that I've done and why. So if you found this helpful, please share. Hopefully you learned something in here that you didn't know, and hopefully it reinforced if there were things you knew but you just weren't paying attention because you're like, no, I couldn't be in menopause yet. Maybe this helped reinforce where you can be like, oh, okay, maybe this is what's going on, so that you can get ahead of it a little bit or get on top of it a little bit. So again, I hope you found that helpful. Please feel free to share. And in the meantime, have a fabulous day. I will see you next week, and be well. Bye.